Okay, so it's 6:33. I'm going to ask the Serped team, do we have anybody waiting in the waiting room still, or good to go? Okay. I'm Jen Carloni, the town planner. I'm going to actually turn it over to Marie Klarner, the chair for the Master Plan Committee. So Marie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Marie Klarner. I'm chairman of the North Attleboro Planning Board, and lucky me, chairman of the North Attleboro Master Plan Committee as well. With me tonight for the Master Plan Committee, I have Bill Blaze, if you want to give a wave, please, and David Tinnery. Here we go. And we have our town planner, Jennifer Carloni. And I'm going to turn this over to Eric Arbeen from Serped to introduce everybody from Serped. Excuse me, I just saw Laurel Racine is here. Laurel, do you have video too? Do you want to give us a little wave so people know who you are? Thank you. And Eric, do you want people to put their cameras back on? Do you want them to leave them off? Just stay mute. What's your preference?
During the presentation, if you want to turn them off, and you can mute yourself. We'll do a brief presentation, then we'll get into a discussion where you can turn on your cameras and we want to hear from you. So,
okay.
Well, we do that now. I'm going to share my screen, so just bear with me for one moment, please. Can everybody see my screen? I see heads nodding yes. Okay, that's good. Thank you, Marie. Tonight is the North Attleboro Master Plan. This is the virtual land use, housing, and economic development workshop. And this is going to be a 2-night event. It's tonight, April 12th, as well as Wednesday night, April 14th. These are identical events, so you don't need to come to both. It's to allow for flexibility in folks' schedules. So if we see you tonight, if you'd like to come on Wednesday, please feel free to do so. This is a story map. This presentation is in the form of a story map. So this will be posted to the website after the meeting, where you could look at it afterwards, and we have some maps. I'm going to go through it. Trying to keep the presentation brief. Just a few virtual meeting reminders before we dig in here. The meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the North Attleboro Master Plan website. Closed captioning is available. If you could remain muted and turn off your video, as we said during the presentation, it'd be appreciated. There's the raise hand feature. If you could use that, that would be helpful. We have myself, as well as Sarah Brown, Taylor Perez, Jed Cornock here from Serped. My colleagues will introduce you to those folks a little later. If you're joining by phone, if you use the *6 to mute and unmute and *9 to raise your hand, I don't see anybody on the phone, but staff will be monitoring the chat. If you do have any issues, you can drop a line in the chat and we can take care of it. If we need to remove any participant for disrupting the meeting or a Zoom bomb or something like that, what we'll do is we'll shut it down and then restart it up using the same meeting link. Hopefully that's not an issue, and it hasn't been so far, knock on wood. Tonight's agenda: brief welcome and introductions. We'll do an overview of the master plan, what it's all about. Some takeaways from the discovery workshop that we had back in February, and the survey results that we received more than 800 responses to. So we'll go over a few of those survey results. I'm going to talk about a few different maps we have. We'll talk about past planning goals, and then breakout rooms and questions to consider. We have questions we'll ask you in the breakout room. But I'd like to keep some of this information in mind when we go to the breakout rooms. So, the project team, I think we've already met it, the master plan committee. There are 7 members, of which 5 are here tonight: Marie, Jen, David Tinnery, Bill Blaze, and Laurel Racine. Lyle Perney, I know he's the economic development coordinator. He'll be here on Wednesday night, and Lisa Ryan. And then Serped, as I mentioned before. Myself and my project co-leads, Sarah Brown and Taylor Perez, will meet a bit later. Serped's role. Who's Serped? What's Serped? Serped stands for the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, and we're the town's regional planning agency, who the town has retained to act as a consultant as we develop this plan. Our role is to listen to you, the townspeople, because this master plan is a result of your input. So we're doing meaningful public outreach in the form of, we did the survey, we've had the discovery workshop on 2 nights, we're having this workshop on 2 nights. We'll be having additional workshops throughout the year. We'll also be developing a housing production plan as part of this, and get into that a little bit later. And that'll focus really just on housing. It's a separate plan. But we're going to dive into housing a little bit tonight and get your thoughts on that. But we'll be having another stakeholder meeting in May next month, and we'll be sure to share some of that information with you. But it's to really listen to you, like I said, gather, analyze, and present a lot of data and demographic data, and understand your goals and priorities. So we get the input from you folks, and we look at the data and try to understand your goals and priorities, and then help you create a roadmap or a path to achieve those goals and priorities. The project timeline, as I mentioned, we did the discovery workshop in the wintertime. Spring, this is land use, housing, and economic development. In the fall, we'll look at open space and recreation and natural cultural resources. In the winter of 2022, we'll look at transportation and circulation. And then in the summer, we'll have a final report that'll go to that'll be guided. This whole plan will be guided by the master plan committee and ideally be adopted by the town council and planning board. So I mentioned this discovery workshop, and what was that? So what we did with the discovery workshop, we covered a bunch of different topics, but really wanted to focus on a few takeaways for land use, housing, and economic development, of which we're talking about tonight. So land use, one of the few of the takeaways from what we heard from folks was to utilize a limited amount of available commercially developable land. So there's not a lot of commercially developable land left, but you want to make the input was that you wanted to make all that land compatible with the community's character. And the other one was the continued development of the downtown area into a destination. You have a great downtown, and it's very vibrant. People want to see it taken to the next level. So that's definitely a plus. In terms of housing, there was a lot of support to create additional affordable housing units to meet the requirements of Chapter 40B. When we talk about housing, we can get into Chapter 40B and what that means. Another one was to create housing options for seniors, for folks to age in place. There are places that if people have lived in North Attleboro all their lives, that they have a place to go to. They might not want the acre of land anymore. There are options for them to move out of their big house into a smaller house or something that they can take care of. And economic development, again, a lot of focus on the downtown, desirable development and improving amenities in the downtown, sidewalks, benches, that sort of stuff. And the other one was addressing the future of the Emerald Square Mall, which everybody knows that the situation of the mall, and we could talk a little bit about that. So some of the survey results we talked about, questions we asked, what land use changes would you like to see in North Attleboro in the next 10 years? And again, this is we received more than 800 responses to these questions. And again, you'll see strengthen the vibrancy of the downtown was the highest selection. Most percentage of people answered that, strengthen the vibrancy of the downtown. A lot of support for creating additional recreational areas, open space areas. And again, you'll see the mall on there as well. And to a lesser extent, focus on traffic safety and housing stock. But again, downtown, Emerald Square Mall, more recreational areas. We also asked about housing. What type of housing should be encouraged? What would you like to see more of in North Attleboro? So single family homes on large lots and small lots were the clear favorites, but there was also a lot of support for other types of housing, duplexes, townhouses, condominiums, assisted living facilities. So, the town, as we'll see in a map in a few minutes, that single family dominates the landscape in terms of housing types, but there is an appetite for additional types of housing in town. And one more question we wanted to share with you is, what should the town's top economic development priorities be? And it was attract and support small businesses, followed by enhance arts and cultural amenities. So focusing on the small independent businesses, as well as arts and culture amenities, which kind of fits with the profile of the downtown area. So I wanted to show you some maps because we are going to be talking about land use tonight. We're going to be talking about housing and economic development. So land use. So you'll see this map, and it's a lot of different colors. And what does it show me, and what does it mean? So this is from the town's assessors database. And what they do is they give each parcel in town is categorized. We have a little legend over here. And you can see the blue kind of pops out first. And what's the blue? The blue is institutional use. And that's land owned by the town or the state or a nonprofit religious organization. That's institutional use. You'll also see a lot of yellow. The light yellow is residences smaller than 3 units. So the majority of which are single family homes. You'll also see the red, especially down here by the mall. The red is commercial, and you can kind of see it runs along one here. You'll also see purple in the industrial. That's over by the industrial park. So you can kind of see patterns. And the white obviously is major roadways. You also see a lot of green out in the western part of town, and that's open space and recreation, areas that aren't going to be developed. We have some agricultural parcels. So they don't always fit perfectly. Again, this is not zoning. This is just how the land is used according to assessors codes. And when you have this, you'll be able to kind of drill down if you would like. And I know people like to look at their homes. Where's my house located? What's around my house? And you'll be able to do that with this. I'm just gonna step back and keep going here. So that's land use, and you can see land use in town is dominated by those smaller, less than 3 unit housing developments, 44%, followed by the institutional uses and other uses as well. Community priority areas, and what are these? Back in 2008, as part of the whole South Coast Rail Initiative, the state apportioned money for SERPID and other regional planning agencies to reach out to each of the towns and identify areas where they would like to see development. They're called priority development areas, where they'd like to see preservation, priority preservation areas. So they did this in 2008. They did it again in 2013, funded through the South Coast Rail Program, just to see if anything has changed. And you can see, that's a little legend. So the purple are areas that folks wanted to develop or focus their development on. So you can see we have the downtown up here. We have the area around the Emerald Square Mall. You have up here Plainville, 152, that area, as well as protection areas, the green areas you'd like to keep protected or preserved or undisturbed. So it kind of follows, if you remember from the land use, it looks reminiscent of that. So again, you can scroll down, you can look at individual parcels and whatnot. Next up is housing. So this is a map, housing, again, another map of the town. This shows housing. And bring up a little legend here. And the lightest color is single family residential housing, of which the map contains majority of that. Goes into the darker the color, the other use is 2 families, a little darker. It's almost yellow is 3 family. Mixed use residential is that orangey color. And you can see, we'll make that a little larger. So about 88% is single family residential in town, the types of housing in town. And again, if we scroll in, you can look and you can see the downtown has a diverse number of uses. As you get out to the western part of town, it's more single family, and the southern part of town. But along kind of the main corridors, you can see there's a diversity of housing types there. And zoning. So zoning tells you or allows people how they can develop their land. So, so you can see this is the town's zoning map, and you can see there are a bunch of different colors here and a bunch of different districts. So start with R10. So R10 you can see is right in the northern part of town outside the downtown, and R10 is what they call intensive residential. So that's lots, 10,000 square foot lots that you can develop a home on. R15 would be single family residential, where you could develop a house on 15,000 square feet. R20, 20,000 square feet, 40,000 square feet. And you can see, again, out to the western part of town, single family residential, 40,000 square feet, again, large lots. There's also not all part of that town has water and sewer, so you need the larger lots, whereas the downtown has more infrastructure. The lots can be a little tighter. You can also see the industrial district zoned here. You can see zoning around the Emerald Square Mall and Route 1. So you can, and you'll see these hatched marks, and that is the hatch marks are water resource protection districts. So there's an added layer that protects your water resources in town. So there's an added layer of restrictions of what can happen in those particular areas. So past planning. So we've talked about what's here now. You've had a lot of plans done. Your master plan was last done in 2014. You've also had hazard mitigation plans done and municipal vulnerability plans. And so just wanted to highlight a few of those past planning documents. We're happy to embrace those, and we'll use those as we develop this plan. We want to build on good planning with additional planning. So land use, one of the recommendations from the last master plan was to encourage sound and environmentally sustainable balance between residential, commercial, and industrial uses. You want to develop the community while protecting its natural resources. You want to preserve the rural character of the northwestern part of town. Develop bylaws, a variety of bylaws to protect stormwater management, wetlands protection, development in flood-prone areas, that sort of thing. Housing, provide a diverse range of housing options. That's kind of, and create the addition, encourage the creation of more affordable housing. And that's what we've heard in the discovery workshop, as well as in the survey to a degree. Economic development, a more sustainable mix of businesses, withstanding economic downturns. That was pretty interesting given the state we're in now. Revise zoning bylaws to encourage growth where appropriate. A TOD along 152 on the North Attleboro Plainville town line. It's quite a busy part of town. So those were some of the goals and aspirations from previous plans. Some of those might be great and we can bring them along and kind of flesh them out a little bit more. Others may have changed and you want to tweak them or just disregard them. But that's what we're here to listen to you folks and hear what your thoughts are on that. So we'll soon be going into a breakout room and we'll have an open chat and you can turn on your videos and your microphones, and we're very eager to hear you of what you folks think and what you think the future of the town should look like. So some questions to consider, kind of keep in the back of your mind. Are there specific places in town where you want to see redevelopment or development? A lot of the towns developed. Would you like to see certain things redeveloped? What kind of non-residential growth, businesses, offices, manufacturing, where would you like to see it, and where and what types would you like to see? Specific types of housing. Again, what type of housing is missing? We've heard some of the survey, and where should it be located? We also talked about the priority areas. Do they make sense? Have they changed? That was back in 2013, so 8 years ago. And zoning changes. Are there any zoning changes, or this should actually be mixed use versus single family? Just curious as to what you folks think, again, because that's a big part of the plan. Serpent's here to facilitate this process. We have no agenda when developing the plan. It's really listening to you. That's how we come up with the goals and strategies, working directly with the master plan committee who guides us during this process. We also have a master plan website where a lot of this information will live. We have an email, Facebook page. We have a text listening line, a comment card on our Facebook. So if you want to leave a message, please do so. Any one of these options, we'd be happy to get back to you. If you'd like to call us, our contact information is there as well. We're all working remotely, but we're more than happy to take the time and talk with you if you want to have an individual conversation and learn more if you have any questions, because there's a lot of information and we do understand that. So I am going to stop sharing my screen for actually. Hold on one moment. Sarah, can you bring up the crowdsource map? Let me stop sharing here.
So Eric, just to confirm, I think tonight, just because of the smaller attendance, will probably be good just doing one room, have one big conversation. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds fine. I could see, as I was talking, I could see a few more people entering, but I think having one conversation is fine. I don't know how many people are in the room at the moment, but for those who just came in, I appreciate you coming. If you have any questions, first of all, before we get into the crowdsource map, does anybody have any questions about the information I just presented, or does anybody need any clarification? You can turn on your screens, and you can now it's we can start to talk and listen to what your folks have to say. If you want to use the raise your hand, you can use that, or if you just want to turn it on and start talking, we can do it that way as well. I don't see anybody that has a question. Okay. So this is the second part. This is kind of where we have the open chat as to what folks want to see in the town. So we have three maps here. We have a land use map, a housing map, and an economic development map. So based on the information that we just talked about and the questions I posed, again, this workshop focuses on land use, how you want the land to be used, economic development, what type of economic development would you like to see, where, and housing. Is there enough housing in town? Is there a certain type? Should it go in a certain place? And depending on that, we have these maps here. Sarah, if you could take the land use map and highlight it there, and turn on the legend. So this is a land use map, and we can take comments here tonight, and we're curious as to what people think, and we'll input these for you. But this will be up on the website until the end of the month. And what folks can do is you can go in here on your own and add your own comments. Does anybody have a comment? And we can show you how it works. Does anybody have a general comment to start off? I want to see, you can talk about land use, you can talk about economic development or housing. We can go back and forth between the topics.
I saw that Anne Marie raised her hand.
Oh, I didn't see it. Hi, Anne Marie, you're on mute.
Hi there.
Hey, there you
Yeah,
go.
I raised my hand. I was trying to find the raise hand feature, but I didn't find that yet. So I raised.
Okay.
So, hi, thank you. This is really incredible. Unfortunately, I missed in the beginning portion to comment. Looking at the priorities, they really fit in for myself personally. I work with the Board of Health, and so we work with trying to support, healthy initiatives. We have a human services coordinator and a food pantry. So we work with a lot of those that are in the lower socioeconomic. So, definitely some of the things that, the healthier use of land, more development of walking trails. We've talked about having bike trails for the community. We don't have that. We don't have enough sidewalks. Makes it very difficult for people to be able to walk safely. Probably more as you go further out west, in those areas there. Downtown, has good sidewalks. The development of downtown, parking is an issue. I would love to see either a one-way direction or, just the one lane to try to encourage more use of downtown, where people could have tables outside or more pedestrian friendly.
Hey, Marie, I don't want to cut you off, but
That's
this will be a great spot for Sarah to demonstrate how this works. Sarah, if you want to scroll into the downtown area, and that's we've heard that before in the Discovery Workshop, is we need more parking downtown. It's kind of a little bit all over the place, but we need additional parking downtown. Sarah's going to show how to do that. So you click on the economic development, and you can kind of scroll in, and what you do, and Sarah, you can watch.
Okay, for economic development, we'll be placing a point on the map. So for a category, I think for future parking, you would like to see I have a suggestion for future commercial development. So we'll click on that, or we can have other. So I'll just do this one for now. Click on that. And Is there a particular area like along here you'd like to see more parking?
Really just anywhere along the downtown. You know, we have street parking, but it's not enough. I think we'd see more people utilizing stores downtown, eating places downtown, if there was more of, you know, easier accessible parking.
So for a general comment like that, you could just kind of drop it in there and then you just add your comment. More and easier parking areas in the downtown to access, you know, the available businesses. And you can add your name. That's not required, correct, Sarah?
So the name and email are not required, but if you do put them, it will not be shown to the public. It will just be in the back end for us.
Yep. So
Nice.
you include it on there and there it is. And Sarah, other folks can, yep, go ahead.
And this is what it looks like. So it just shows your comment and that's it. And then this likes will be if someone, this is like a like button. So if more people say your comment like is good, the more likes you get, maybe the higher the priority will be. Or people can also comment, say they know location exactly that they would like to see parking. They can put a comment on there too.
That's how it works. And we'll have this open through the end of the month. We'll talk about this, you know, obviously at our meeting on Wednesday. But we encourage people to do it. We can take comments here as we're talking. You can go back. It'll be available on the website, and you can go and do it yourself as well. Does anybody else have any additional comment? Anne Marie, I'm sorry, I cut you off just so we could do that, but keep going.
I was going to say, I could just keep on going, but you know,
Perfect.
you know, one of the things is we really don't have a playground available for some of the apartment buildings further along the downtown, you know, more towards the, you know, northern part where we have a lot, you know, there's no playground area there. The closest one is the one in back of community school, but there's nothing down that other end except for up to the YMCA. So it'd be nice to have something in that area.
Do you have like a location you think that would be a good area?
Oh no, there's nothing there. It's all developed. It's wishful thinking, you know.
Anne Marie, isn't there a playground behind the ELC?
There's a small playground there, but there's not much to
No,
it.
I know,
Maybe that's
but-
something that could be developed more, you know, like they've done with some of the other schools. But
There's
that's-
one at Martin School, and then there's none at Amvet, and there's none at Roosevelt,
Right.
which is actually very disappointing. Not to cut you off or anything.
No, that's absolutely
throw that
right,
out there.
Kevin. Yep. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right.
I'm Kevin McCarthy. I'm the one that's been floating around town. If you've heard my name, probably on Facebook. I'm the one trying to get the dog park going.
Yes.
That's me. That's what I would like to see. I would like to see a dog park. I know a lot of the town would. I've been working with the rec office since January on it. We still don't have a location nailed down. I would love to see it go off in the back soccer fields of High Street because there's also some, you know, to build off what Anne Marie was saying with people wanting bike paths and things like that. I think we could build off that. Start with the dog park. And then I thought, you know, well, maybe in 5 years we could do a skate park or something for the kids. It's just more than all that's up there is two giant soccer fields, and that's it. It's kind of a waste of space. I'd like to see something really up there. I mean, you know, I'll take any spot in town right now, but that's, I think, would be an ideal spot. I know there's already a couple existing paths that we could probably build off there. And who's to say we can't get, you know, volunteers or anything involved. I'm affiliated with Boy Scouts also, so I might be able to get them involved with that. You know, there's lots of ideas and things to go. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but that's what I would like to see. That's kind of my priority.
Can you navigate me to where the soccer fields are on High Street? Am I in the right area?
Yeah, it's the what is it? The Titus Pond, I think it's called. It's in the back of that. If you go up High Street, at Arnold Road.
Going in the right direction? Is
Am I
it
going in the right direction?
west or east?
I can't see. It's kind of, you're too zoomed out.
See this purple, the purple square? This one, no, this, yeah, and here's Arnold Road.
Yeah.
And then you have High Street,
Yep.
that's going, where did High Street go?
Big white area with the blue.
To
Off of High
the
Street.
right side of
Okay.
John J. Grimaldi Drive.
Okay, there you go.
Alright.
So right here. Yep, thank you.
Right in here? Okay.
Yeah, so this
Yeah.
is Titus's pond where the
Yeah.
kids go skating in the winter.
Okay.
And this was a farm, the Lestage farm. The town bought it. I forget how long ago. But Kevin's right, there are 2 soccer fields there, but they started this winter on working towards more space. Probably somebody should talk about playgrounds with them, but I know that they are working and have had conversations with the senior center about a walking path here, because there's one already kind of delineated by existing stone walls, so that people can pull in and park safely and go for a nice long walk, and they'd have more than one loop to it. So that's being considered as well.
Marie, is the community gardens, those are still there, right?
I don't know. I haven't heard anything about them since almost 2 years ago now. I would imagine that somebody would have to get a hold of Tish Dorenzo to find out if they're going to move forward with that again.
I understand you folks just are wrapping up your open space and recreation plan. So as we're developing the plan, we'll be absolutely sure to reference that a lot of input has been gathered on that as well. But, adding the comments here also helps. Just because you added an open space and rec plan, it also helps here. Having all these plans in place is great. It also helps on grant applications. We've identified this in a number of plans. A lot of grant applications want to see, where have you documented this? And, we've documented this in 3 different plans, and it only helps when those opportunities arise, of which there are plenty of grants. I think we'll be seeing more and more as the time as time progresses here. Anybody else have any land use? Again, housing, economic development, the downtown. We talked about the downtown.
What is, I'm sorry, a little off subject, only because it's almost right next to my house. What is the deal with the old Weber building, and is that untouchable because of chemicals in the ground, is what I'm hearing? That's been a super eyesore for as long as I can remember. I've been here 17 years. It's been abandoned at least that long. There's also a couple abandoned places on Richards Ave, which is directly right next to the Weber building. I'm sure you've seen it driving down Broadway, the big giant gray building with the red X's on it. I supposedly there's chemicals in the ground. Is that untouchable? Nothing could be done there. I mean, it's just such an eyesore.
I'll defer to Jen or Marie or Bill, who has more information about that.
Yeah, I actually have had a client look into that facility, and it's privately owned.
Yep.
Fortunately, and the owners want an exorbitant amount of money to purchase it, but it's going to cost a lot of money to obviously demo the place.
Right.
And as far as chemicals in the ground, I haven't heard that. My understanding is that there is asbestos roof tiles and asbestos flooring in the building that would have to be abated. But I haven't heard anything about chemicals in the ground.
Okay. I may have misheard then.
Just to add on to what Bill was saying, this is Marie Klarner. The Lyle Purdy, the Economic Development Director, if you come on Wednesday, he's the better person to ask this of, because he's been working on getting grants to have these sites, the Webster Building on Broadway,
Yep.
Another one on Richards Ave, the Robinson Building down on Robinson Ave in the Falls behind Dyer Lake, and I'm not sure how many others, to have them assessed for contamination and to see what the actual long-range future of that property might be, because it depends on the classification, from what I understand, as to what it can be used for.
Gotcha.
So, but then again, as Bill indicated, you're talking about people wanting lots of money for private land. And then on top of that, the cost to remediate is usually a lot of money. So I
Yeah.
can't tell you, but Lyle could certainly, and we can ask him if you want, if you can't come Wednesday, if you want to ask us, have us ask Lyle, we can ask him to speak to that issue, and then you can look it up later if you want.
Just to add to that too, I think some of those older buildings are in a zone that, limits what could be done with the land. The website.
Right. I didn't know if that was something. I didn't know if that was something you could turn housing into, is what I was kind of saying.
Yeah, I think, it would take some
But
creative zoning.
Yep.
Maybe like some overlay districts or something to that effect, for these older sites that would give more opportunity for development instead of just, it's commercial, so that's what you can put there. And then obviously that's a more expensive entity to build, and there are limited people that do commercial development.
Right.
Actually, can you guys zoom in on that site on Broadway? It's up at the end of Richards Avenue from downtown to see what it is zoned. I don't know what it is zoned off the top of my head.
I think it's C30.
Is it C30?
It was purple. Yeah, it's just south of the pin. Whoop.
Oops, sorry, I'm just bringing up the zoning map.
Just bringing up the zoning map to take a look.
Okay, so up in
Yeah,
here.
keep zooming in to the left. There's that purple area down into the, there you go, the long triangular piece.
Yeah, it looks like a little.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. And what's gray, Bill? Do you remember what this gray is here?
That's our
Next
10,
to
I
it.
think.
Oh, because, well, we all know what's there. Those are some more old factory buildings.
Yes.
And down here as well, the last one on the right, I think. Isn't that the Ferrara building, Bill?
I believe so.
Yeah. But as I said, Bill and I know some stuff about it, but out of anybody who's more up to date, I would say Lyle is probably the one, because he's been working with the state for quite a while about how to get them evaluated and all that.
Yep. Right just to the north. There you go. That's the building.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just
So
gonna put a house.
Yep. So you might be wondering while Sarah's typing that, you'll be looking at this. This is, we call this the housing map, and you'll see why is all this blue or yellow. Blue is, when we're talking about affordable housing, as part of this whole process, we'll be doing a housing production plan, and as part of that, the state asks, can you identify any town-owned land that might be a possibility to create affordable housing on? So all these blue spaces is land that the town owns. Big disclaimer, it's all land that the town owns. We're not saying you're going to put housing at the high school, obviously, or at the World War I park, but there may be those sites in town where you could put some type of infill housing or something like that, or there's an old school, or there's an old town hall, or there's some type of old building that the town sees as kind of surplus property that they might be interested in developing for affordable housing. It also highlights housing authority properties, that sort of thing. So just because it's highlighted, we're not going to necessarily put affordable housing there. You might not go anywhere in here, but these are town-owned lots. Why we highlighted them blue. Could any of these locations be a site for possible affordable housing, as that's an important important goal for the town to develop that the amount of affordable housing here in town.
What about the what about the where the Old Fellows building burned down a couple of years ago? Could you put an apartment building there? Would that be considered affordable housing?
Well, it's private property, Kevin.
Is it?
Yeah, still private property. Yep. Eric, all the blue properties that you have indicated there, some of them are either conservation land or parkland. Is there any way, maybe at the next one, that you can separate out that legend a little bit, because it's kind of foolish for us to say, oh, you know what, it'd be great if we could put housing in a particular spot, but it's land that is permanently protected and can't be changed. So
yeah, we could do that for the,
okay.
Yeah, we could do that definitely for the next meeting.
Well, even on the website, I think it would give people a good opportunity to take a look and see, if there is some town-owned land that's just sort of sitting there. And I know that the town council's been looking at various spreadsheets and whatever of town-owned land, but I think the more ideas we can get from people, the better off we'll be. And Kevin, my anticipation is that someday on that corner lot where the house building burned down, you'd probably see something similar go back that has retail on the bottom and apartments upstairs.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know if I wasn't sure who wanted it or anything. I thought maybe it might, or either affordable housing or a nice downtown playground or something.
Yeah, it is private, still private property.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure.
we'll filter that out, schools and open space areas to
Okay.
kind of narrow it down a little bit more.
But you could put some sort of a legend question mark at some of the outlying schools, because as the school department continues to do analyses of how much is this building going to cost us to maintain with roofs, heating system, whatever, over the next how many years, making decisions as to whether or not they're better off building something different or not. So over the years, real estate people have gone to the town and talked about how about if they buy a particular one of the older schools to turn it into apartments, but that has never seen the light of day for a variety of reasons. The biggest one being that there's still kids in them. So.
Yeah, that would be a no-go. So in terms of, we're on the housing map now, you can, but just a general question, in terms of housing, is there enough single family housing in town? Is there not enough single family? Do you need more condos or senior care or, nursing homes or that sort of thing in town? Where should they go?
Dan has his hand raised.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Sorry, I'm used to town meetings where I have to raise my hand to get acknowledged. It seems to me that what's missing in town is probably what's missing throughout most of Massachusetts is starter homes. There are a lot of single family homes in town for people who have, who can afford $600,000, $700,000 homes. There aren't a whole lot of homes for young couples starting out, maybe with one child or whatever. How do you develop that sort of housing, particularly where land is so expensive? So for a developer to see a return on the investment that it costs them to buy the land, they have to build a house that is going to sell for at least $500,000. How do you have a $300,000 home for young families?
It's a great question, and it's a tough question to answer, because we hear this in a lot of towns, is that the price of the property is so high that they have to develop something to pay for the land and then make a profit on it, as well as build the house, and that's why you see so many. There are a few state programs out there that that would allow for it. There aren't a lot of subsidies for, what do they consider middle income housing. Low income or affordable housing is anything under 80% of the area median income. And there's a whole lot of information that goes behind that. But anything for 80% and above to 120% of the area median income, I don't know off the top of my head, I don't know what the area median income is in North Attleboro, but there's not a lot of subsidies out there. If it's under that 80%, there are a lot of different subsidies that developers can use and go the 40B route. Chapter 40B allows a developer, for the folks who don't know, allows a developer, it's a state law, if the town has under 10% of its housing considered affordable, a developer can override local zoning and put in an affordable housing complex in town. North Attleboro's percent, I think, is like a 3.5. So you're well under that 10% threshold. So if a developer came in and wanted to go to an area and develop, 20 units an acre in a certain area, they could. There's a process that goes along with it. It's not just cut and dry, but they would be able to bypass local zoning to do that. Once you're over that 10%, the town has the ability to deny those types of applications. There hasn't been a lot of that type of development in North Attleboro, but that's not saying there won't be in the future. So for those types of programs, there's a lot of subsidies available through the state and other resources that make it viable to develop that type of housing. But of kind of above that threshold, that middle income housing for those $300,000 starter Cape homes that, you know, are so plentiful in the area, there's not a lot of subsidies out there. There's certain zoning mechanisms that work and state programs, but it's somewhat limited.
Eric, I was gonna follow up with it because I kind of had a question myself. You know, since this is topical with the housing production plan, the zoning mechanisms that are possible to kind of increase that, you know, starter home stock, can that just be as simple as, you know, decreasing minimum lot size requirements in certain areas so that you can get more units in a subdivision that could be smaller?
That definitely is a possibility. I mean, it has to go through town council and has to get approved and whatnot. So there would have to be, you know, also a fair amount of public outreach and education in any type of bylaw. But there are programs. I'm thinking of off the top of my head, the 40R starter home zoning district, which encourages 4 units an acre. But there's some, you know, they got to be 3 bedrooms, and you know, so there are some there's some strings attached, if you will, to that type of zoning. But that is a different way to do it, is increase the density to make it more affordable. But then, you know, there's other factors to consider as well.
Eric, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters in North Attleboro that were developed to have houses, you know, on smaller lots, et cetera. And I got to tell you, I don't think I'd put any of them in the starter home category. There's one right now under construction, and those houses are in the mid-5s, low 6s. The one that was developed prior to that, most of those houses are 5 or 6. And one of the older ones, that's a very small one, those houses were originally purchased for maybe 2.5, maybe 3. And currently they're selling for high 4, low 5.
Yeah,
That's my entire neighborhood.
it's definitely tough. I know that you've talked about an inclusionary zoning bylaw, and that,
Yeah.
you know, that's another avenue. Again, that's a subsidy. It's not a market rate affordable housing. It's, you know, it's kind of the 2 types of affordable housing, kind of the uppercase A, the affordable housing that's subsidized, and kind of the lowercase a, the affordable housing that's just naturally affordable. That's tough, especially in this market and the real estate. It's a tough. You don't see too many. Like I said, I grew up in Brockton, and on a slab ranch with like 5 rooms, you know, 3 bedrooms. Those houses now are going, you know, for like the mid to high 3s, which I think they were built in the 50s for like, you know, $5,000. But yeah, you don't see developers building those types of houses because they can't. They're just not financially feasible.
What kind of incentives can you offer developers? Because most developers will say to you, by the time I buy the land, pay a surveyor / engineer to plans, file for all the permits I need before I need however many boards, before I even put a shovel in the ground, I have to build a certain kind of house to make any money on it. Is there anything that other towns do to streamline that? Or my other question was, North Attleboro does have a housing authority. Most of our housing authority units are senior, but there is some that is
Family.
regular affordable housing. Do communities have better luck with doing it themselves like that, or do they do better having a developer come in and put up a 40B project?
It can be done both ways. You know, I don't know if the town has a municipal affordable housing trust, but sometimes that can help too. You know, you create an affordable housing trust, and instead of, you know, if you have an inclusionary zoning bylaw, instead of making them build a certain unit, they can contribute money to a fund. That's a way of doing it. But with the housing authority, just in my own experience, housing authorities, they got a lot, they were big in like the 50s and 60s. They built a lot of senior housing, and it's kind of just stayed that way. There's not a ton of money coming into housing authorities to build new properties per se. Yeah, it really depends on the town. You know, Plainville to the north has like 17% of their housing is affordable. They have a lot of huge apartment complexes. That's how they got there. And they're looking at it, developing another one. But that's all done through the private sector with those subsidies I mentioned. And again, some of them are rentals, some of them they're not single family homes. They're, you know, apartments or condos, that type of thing.
Is there a big demand in town for that? Even if you were to build it, would they sell?
In terms of
Affordable
you know, like
housing stuff?
affordable housing, I would
Yeah.
assume so. I mean, it just, you know, the market is, you know, is quite wild right now, I guess, for lack of a better term. It seems interest rates are low and, you know, the housing prices only seem to keep climbing. We haven't delved too much into that data yet. I would, off the top of my head, I would say yes. I'd kind of defer to Jen and Marie, who are in the trenches at town hall every day, you know, seeing what comes in and what people are looking for.
I can just, as a quick comment, we have gotten a couple of phone calls just weekly about people looking for affordable housing units, wondering if there's a lottery and that kind of thing in North Attleboro. Also, in terms of development, we've had a lot of calls about subdivisions. I mean, it's definitely a hot market right now.
Yeah.
As we understand. Also, just a couple other just points as we were talking. Generally, we could look as a town, like Taylor said, we could look at expanding some of our smaller residential lot size districts to different areas. We could also look at, you know, that the cluster zoning bylaw has a requirement for 15 acres as a minimum to even be considered a cluster. So you could look at those thresholds, see if those thresholds could be reduced downward to potentially allow for different development. But again, those ones have tended to stick, the cluster one has tended to be single family development. I believe it allows for other types of development as well. So those are just kind of some of the thresholds and things that we can look at as part of this and as part of the housing production plan.
Yeah, and we're going to have another stakeholder. We're going to have a stakeholder meeting, a public meeting next month, where we'll really get into the details and we'll give you some of the background, and it'll be exclusively about you know, housing with the real focus on affordable housing, and we can kind of drill a little deeper. Well, this is, you know, great conversation to have. Just was, you know, kind of. I don't think you want to hear me talk, but we want to hear you folks what you think of it. And if anybody has any, you know, I'm happy to answer questions. But if we have any deeper questions, I'm more than happy to take a conversation offline as well. But just trying to get a sense of what folks think in town about, you know, housing is, you know, we mow the starter homes. That was a good point.
I just wanted to. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Eric. I just wanted to follow up with a couple of points about the housing production plan and just kind of starter homes in general. One, we're house searching. My partner and I would gladly live in North Attleboro if there was an affordable starter home. So I imagine there's a lot of folks kind of in my bracket who are doing the same. Can't speak for the proper number or demand, but I'm sure it's high. Second point too is just that if you are interested in that, like, we definitely encourage you to come to the housing production plan stakeholder meeting that we're going to have at the end of May. Date pending, we're not sure yet. And as a part of that, we have been kind of looking into potentially doing like an optional like home mortgage, like little sub analysis as a part of it. And so that's something that if folks, you know, in town are interested in something like that, we're happy to consider going forward and dig a little bit deeper into that as a part of the plan. So just wanted to follow up with that.
And we'll make that available on the website and broadcast it out to the press and whatnot.
Right.
But is there enough senior housing in town? We heard a lot about that, affordable senior housing or senior housing options at our last meeting. Either 55 plus or, you know, congregate care or nursing homes or things like that.
Well, we have the branches and Madonna Manor, you know, what I guess you would call the branches congregate because it's one of those phased ones. Madonna Manor is a nursing home. To be honest with you, it's an issue I raised to you guys before. A lot of senior citizens in North Attleboro, when their houses become too big for them or too expensive, they move into mobile homes. We have a lot of mobile homes in North Attleboro. And most of the people that live in them are senior citizens. There are a couple of them that are restricted. to people that are 55 and over. But even if you go to some of the older ones, they're mostly senior citizens or close to it.
Mhm.
So I guess that's a no, we don't have enough senior living.
I don't think so, Bill. You know,
don't either.
I get questions about that all the time. I talked to a couple of people that I know that are in real estate, and they said they get the same two questions that we're talking about here. Where can I move to in North Attleboro? Because I was born here. I've lived here all my life. I can't keep my big house anymore, but there's nowhere for me to move. I'd like one level. There isn't, you know, or somebody who's young, professional, just starting out, just got married there, you know, unless you got a mighty fine job, you're gonna have a tough time finding a house.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna get any easy either, because all the baby boomers are gonna be retiring and downsizing, so there'll be a bigger demand.
So, well,
Would that be an opportunity for like mixed use where you could have retail and healthcare and 55 and over housing? Do we have zoning that would allow for that sort of thing?
I don't
No,
believe we do currently.
no, but it's certainly one of the things that we've been talking about for a couple of years. And I'm gonna try and be quiet now. It's hard.
I would love
but
to
I'm
hear
gonna
people's
try.
thoughts on that though. You know, is it predominantly in the downtown? Are we talking Route 1? Are we talking 152? Where would you know, you as residents like to see that type of mixed use, you know, reusing existing retail buildings, you know, different areas. So that's kind of the concept there, is where would that be appropriate? Where would we like to see more mixed uses, where we see residential maybe above, or, you know, residential alongside commercial, or that kind of mixture of things? So up for
Would
grabs.
say on 152 at the driving range, just south of the Plainville line. So right, I keep going in that purple and pinkish color, and then we're just north of George Levin Drive, down left. There you go, in that area, a little more north.
That pink area and the white area in the back, it's actually like you go past this little strip mall here and it's back here, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's like 4 or 5 buildings out front that are older, and then there's a large, you know, field that they use as a driving range currently. So that's a pretty substantial sized area that could be used as mixed use.
in the general area, I mean, if you're doing this on your own and you can't find the spot, just put it there and, you know, describe it, and we'll figure it out, you know, near the driving range. Yeah.
Yep.
This is Anne Marie. One of the issues too is the transportation for seniors as they get older and lose the ability to drive. Transportation, I know we'll be talking about that later, but I mean, that's something that kind of goes into that. And in that area there is really a food desert, right? There's no grocery stores in that area. There used to be Rojacks, right? That's now the
Right.
Pet Smart place.
Yep.
So that's, you know, there's some issues like that. So,
Well, the Stop and Shop in Plainville, it's not that far from there. Then the Shaw's is kind of near there.
There is
That was about-
Gatra service
yeah,
to that area.
Yeah.
but it's,
I don't think it serves those
Minimal.
locations as
No,
right.
as Anne Marie's saying. So if you lived there, you wouldn't necessarily be able to hop on a bus to get to those
Right.
closest grocery stores.
Yes, that's true.
one of the things we had talked about quite a while ago would be if this area were to become mixed use, to do something that they've done quite a bit, I guess, out in the Midwest. They have sort of sections. So you have a section that's younger people and it's apartments. And then you have another little section that's condos for people with children. And then you have another section for senior citizens. But you also have retail or coffee shops or I don't want to say a 7-Eleven, but like a small grocery store, so that people who live in that area don't have to leave to play because you've got a playground there. And you've got little shops, you can take a walk, go have coffee, go sit outside and have lunch, whatever. I don't know how much space those kinds of things require, but we did talk about maybe being able to do something like that, which would be, basically repurposing that area.
Absolutely.
All
I'd also be
right.
curious if on Route 1, if anybody thinks that might be an area, as we have different retail buildings, would any of the retail corridor there, could we see that as mixed use? Is there any opportunity there for maybe residential to be mixed into that, where you can have, residential and
Mall.
yeah, well, I'm just saying, is that something that seems appropriate, between the mall or any of the retail, that's kind of having some vacancies as of now? Could they be reused? Because then that's exactly that mix of medical, you can have apartments, you can have access to transit.
And that, again, we're visioning here. We're looking at 10 years in the future. Keep that in mind too. Just because it's what's there now doesn't mean it's always going to be there too. So
Right.
If
And
you
we
head
have to
down
change
95, to
zoning
the-
and whatnot. So that's why we need the vision, just to figure out, what can we put in place to help promote these things that might be
if
desired.
you head down to the other end of Route 95 in Westwood, there's the Westwood Station development,
Right.
which
Yeah.
is apartments, retail, there's some
Offices.
nightlife there, offices,
Yeah.
True mixed use. I don't know if there's any 55 and over there. That's the one thing I'm not sure of. It's there. But the other
I think-
places, without retail, without apartments, but sort of the Patriot Place area is developing along those lines. If they had apartments there, that would be where they've got healthcare, retail, entertainment, restaurants, a little bit of everything there.
Well, couldn't you, I'm sorry, this might be off subject, but nobody's mentioned anything, what's gonna happen with the mall in the next 10 years? Is that gonna be, I know it's
That's-
privately owned and all that, but
That's what we're talking about right now, Mr. McCarthy. Could we look at that area as mixed use?
right. I personally, I'd like to see that turn into something like Legacy Place
Mhm.
in Dedham, or rent them outlets.
Well, actually, if you look not too far north of us in Plainville, if you go up Route 1, just past 495 on the left-hand side, you can't see most of it, but there are restaurants there. There are apartments, there is senior housing, there is office space, and there is storage space. So that one's pretty nicely laid out. And when you go by it on the street, all you see are the signs for the two restaurants that are there. I think it's 110 Grill and I forget what the other one was.
Yeah.
Viva.
And you don't see
Pizza place.
the rest of it, the storage and all that unless you're coming off the highway. I'm not sure, but I think there's also a hotel there.
Might be.
I know that was part of the original proposal, but I don't know if that's what happened.
I apologize. I guess I wasn't following the maps moving so fast.
We do. And you
Yeah.
got somebody like me who talks a lot, so.
Yeah, there's a lot of action going on. Appreciate
Yeah,
Yeah,
sorry.
there you are.
Yeah.
We usually-
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
much of a townie. I'm trying to be though.
Well,
We
I
usually-
mean, I think the original concept of the mall, was supposed to be what we're talking about. It's supposed to be, like an all-inclusive thing, but that's not what
Right.
it's eventually evolved into. It just became shopping.
Emerald Square Mall? No, it was
No,
always,
the mall in general, when it was first envisioned, there would be
oh, the
people living
actual,
there, restaurants,
Concept of malls.
retail.
Yeah.
You could work there, live there, eat there, and you didn't have to go anywhere. But that's not what it turned into.
there's another one in Cranston called Chapel Hill.
Yep.
And every time somebody talks about it, I laugh because I guess if you are from around here, it's where the bad boys school used to be. If you were a bad boy in Rhode Island, it's where you got sent.
Mm.
But now it's restaurants, office space, shops. There's a Stop and Shop in there. I think there's quite a bit. But again, I don't know how much land you need for any of those kinds of multi-use development. Because to me, there's a difference between the multi-use in Plainville and, like Dan said, with Legacy Place and so forth. Those are separate buildings, and whatever housing there is completely separate. to me, mixed use also includes where you have retail or a restaurant on the ground floor and you have apartments above it.
I mean, we gotta
Well,
keep in mind
I want to
too,
clarify with mixed use though. Mixed use doesn't have to necessarily just be one developer doing all of it. It can be a district that allows,
Right.
you know, different uses to be on one site, but it doesn't have, each one of those uses doesn't have to be one developer developing it.
I mean, we gotta keep in mind too, that to the west of the mall, on the opposite side of Allen Avenue, is a large piece of property. Yes, it's privately owned today, but, you know, someone could come along, redevelop the mall, and then also develop that large tract as well. So
Do-
there is a
do you mean-
substantial amount of land there.
Do you mean the land that, if you look at the Emerald Shops, do you mean the land to the left of that?
Right where the cursor is now is
School,
that's Allen Avenue School.
yes.
Behind that, there's a lot
Oh,
of
that
land.
parcel. Oh, yeah. That is one private property owner.
Yeah,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
it's, you know, over
All
100
owns
acres, I
that.
think.
How many acres is that, Bill?
I think it's over 100. There's a
Wow.
few parcels that make up that piece.
Hmm,
I mean, we'd have to check it on the assessor's map, but it's
yeah.
large.
That's a potential area of, if the mall was to be redeveloped, it would, you know,
Well, I mean, my
it
assumption
could possibly
is that,
be interest, you know, could possibly generate interest.
yeah, I mean, my assumption is that someone someday is going to want to do something with it. Right now, I think it's just zoned for housing.
And the other thing is, I gathered from watching a couple of the town council meetings, we're lucky Dan Donovan, who watches many meetings, is here. I'm pretty sure that the town council, I know they had the Allen Avenue School assessed to see how much it would cost to bring it up to code, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And use it for other town offices, for social services and so forth. But the last time I heard the conversation about it, it was that the town, it's too expensive for the town to do that. So my understanding is that I would imagine at some point it's going to be offered up to be one of those school buildings that's converted to condos or apartments or whatever. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, the figure I heard, Marie, I believe was around $5 million.
yeah, I heard
Somewhere in that neighborhood.
I heard one of those crazy numbers. So that's kind of what,
Yeah.
never mind.
Now, somebody in the questions asked, what is the plan for the Allen Avenue School?
I wanted to put the dog park behind LNF School. I worked for it over a month to put it there. And then I was told in March I couldn't put it there because the town decided to sell it because the building was going to be close to $5 million to fix.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to have to commit to a park and then sell it and then say, sorry, can't have your park here anymore. So I kind of got where they were coming from.
Kevin, I like your idea of doing it up at the Lestage property because I think you'd have more open space because there's a big, huge wetland behind the Allen Avenue School that, you know, would kind of restrict how much open area you'd actually get, but that's not the case up at the Lestage property.
Gotcha.
If you go out to Franklin on King Street, there's a playground, ball fields, community garden complex, and that would be the ideal model for High Street for the Lestage property. It's got a soccer field, a couple of baseball fields, basketball courts, a playground, a clubhouse. It's a beautiful little facility, and it even has the community garden, which is what makes me think of the Lestage property. It's very similar to what that property could be as a model.
And the happy thing is the town bought the Lestage property outright without any 2.5 issues. And Franklin had to do a 2.5 override for that complex.
That's right.
So owning it already is a big deal. Eric, with this map up the way you have now, do you see, everybody see up in the upper left-hand corner where Heather Hill Country Club is?
Yes.
27-hole golf course. Well, that is going to be slowly converted to 55 and over housing because they made a water deal with the town of North Attleborough to run the water line up West Street to get there. So I think they're going to do 9 holes at a time. So, and I have not seen any drawings about it, but I was at a Serpent meeting a couple of months ago, and Chris Yarworth, who's the planner in Plainville, was talking about it. I forget what other issue he was dealing with, and my response was, well, you could keep it a golf course. But they need to solve some other issue up there. It's not water. I don't know what it is, but
Yeah, they get
so-
they get some issues up there, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think it off the top of my head was 384 units, but that's
sounds- that's a
subject to
300
change.
yeah,
That's 40B
300
though,
and
right?
something.
I think that was.
No, it is
40B.
not 40B. No, no.
They're
It's a
over
private-
they're
it's a
over the
private-
threshold, so.
Yeah, they don't need it. It's just going to be senior citizen, 55 and older. I believe it's a developer from New Jersey. I want to say it, but I'm not sure on that either.
So in terms of, I think we talked about, we've talked about housing. We have a housing survey. We're gonna kind of line up in a few minutes here, but going back to economic development, any areas in town, do you want to see additional development in the downtown? I think we talked about more development up by 152. What's the thought on the industrial park or Route 1? Do people like what they see on Route 1? Would they see something different? Is the industrial park, should they expand it? Just questions for folks out there.
I would say
I
yes
don't
to
think-
all of that.
Yeah.
Anything that increases industrial or economic development in town helps the residential taxpayers. So I would like to see Route 1 developed. I'd like to see 152, the industrial park, downtown, every bit of it.
Eric,
That
can you put,
helps.
can somebody put the zoning map up so I can point out a couple of things about that? Hello,
Yep, she's working on it.
we're finding that one. When the zoning map comes up, I want you to take a look at how deep the commercial zone is along Route 1. It's a very, very narrow strip because that zone was laid out. I think maybe somebody who was originally from here, as laid out back in the 50s or 60s. The latest would be the 70s, but it's a very narrow strip on either side of Route 1. Some of it is because there's wetlands there, but if you look at where the mall was, that land was rezoned for that to happen.
Sure.
And that was a very contentious issue in town at the time. But if you look in the middle of the picture, there where that pink zone is, the C30, that's really narrow. And
And-
so nobody, for the most part, people who have come in to look to do something in some of these areas, that has been the restriction that has caused them to go someplace else because they might be able to acquire a bit of, a fair amount of land along Route 1, but they can't get back far enough to make it worthwhile. So now I've only heard that from a few people over the years. Maybe things have changed. I don't know, but I think it's something that we need to pay attention to if we want more people to either come in and do a new development or come in and redevelop a property that's already been developed. I'm not going to say where they are, but there are certainly more than one place where you have little strip plazas on Route 1 and also on 152 that have been there since the 60s.
Good point. So maybe pushing it back a little bit. Obviously, it depends on what's there, and it's the area's been built up since that time. Any other areas on Route 1? What do people think of the development on Route 1? Do you like the type of businesses that are there? Again, we're trying to envision here a little bit, looking 10 years into the future. So what's there is there, and nobody's going to say we're going to get rid of it. The town doesn't own it. Even if the town owns it, that's a whole other kind of ball game. But what would you like to see there? Do you like the businesses there? The types of economic development? Do you want to see more industrial development, or maybe not there, but somewhere else?
Hey, Eric, this is Dave Tinnery. I did
Hey,
have
Dave.
some feedback on, Route 1.
Sure.
So at least my opinion, it feels like there hasn't been a lot of thoughtfulness behind the businesses that have been kind of attracted to the different pockets along Route 1, particularly around the Emerald Square Mall. There's been some good activity recently in the past few years, but like right across the street, you have the new BJ's restaurant, you have a K Jewelers, you have a shop, furniture shop, like all, you know, it's kind of just a random assortment of new retailers and things like that. And it doesn't really seem to lead to any type of, you know, like community type area that to further activate and enhance, and I guess make it more of a like a destination type of vibe.
All right. It's a little more idea into the thought of what types of businesses can go there, and you know, maybe a theme or something.
Yeah, just, you know, just in terms of, yeah, the thoughtfulness behind how these different pockets are getting leased and developed.
Well, in that case, you had one property owner who brought forward the concept of putting a development there to begin with. The original design also included office space and also included walking trails and nature paths in the middle of it. But due to a variety of constraints, they were not allowed to do that. So, and I don't think that we're allowed to say to a property owner, well, I don't like that kind of store. I'd like you to do something else. We can restrict them in terms of how in general it looks and their upkeep, but not, you know, a furniture store instead of something else. I don't know.
Yeah, I just looked at different, you know, different towns like a Watertown, where it seems like when there's just more thoughtfulness behind the assortment of different retailers and you know, just the mix that's brought in, it seems to really help elevate the entire surrounding area more. And I agree, you know, it's difficult that you can't tell people what you can and can't do. So you know, I don't know if there is an ability to at least encourage or bring more advocacy to sorry, I was just reading Monica's note as well. But yeah, that's kind of my commentary on Route 1 is when I look at other towns that seem to be really thriving and being successful, and kind of bringing more of a town vibe and community feeling rather than just a dump of a bunch of different random stores.
Well,
So
just
I'm
to-
going to chime in here. Oh, go ahead, Vic, Bill. Go ahead,
Yeah, I
Bill.
was just going to say, he mentioned Watertown, and a lot of that in Watertown, you know, they use different overlay districts. You know, they would have a vision for a certain area of town, create an overlay district, and put specific regulations in there that, you know, would allow certain types of uses, and, you know, add in, you know, certain amount of public space. You know, you got to have different types of transportation, bikes, things like that. You know, so I mean, there was a lot of thought went into that, and I think that's something, you know, we could always look at, you know, kind of the mixed use, but then adding some sort of maybe additional overlay district where we could incorporate other things like that. Not to restrict people, but just to try to get more out of the development that might happen.
Great. So I just want to kind of chime in and clarify it, just to make sure I'm understanding. So I think there's two things that are kind of in your comments, Dave. There's a concern about the uses, and that's something we could look at in terms of the use table. And then also, like Bill said, there's the opportunity for overlay districts that can kind of promote, you know, they don't just restrict with overlay districts, you can also promote with overlay districts, saying we will allow you incentives if you provide, you know, certain design elements or certain elements that we want to see, and then you're allowed to do something else, or you're allowed a greater, you know, density or something like that, or a larger building for green space somewhere else. Also, design standards is a second thing that I'm kind of hearing is something that is, you know, how does it look and how does it feel? Because again, like Marie said, you don't always necessarily want to restrict the uses, but you might want to have the feeling of it be different. And that kind of is what I think the community might be trying to say there. It doesn't quite feel what you would hope to see there on that part of Route 1.
Yes, I would agree with that. And yeah, to the extent that those tools are available, I think it'd be great.
Jen and Dave and whoever else might be, or Bill, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'll speak to the one that Dave was referencing across the street from the mall. By the time the planning board saw that project, that was already at a full set of plans with at least 3 out of 4 potential tenants already in place. So I don't know if there's some way, whether it's through the design standards like Jen mentioned, or some other way that we can create a situation where people don't have a fully developed project, but come in and maybe get some feedback about, did you know these are the design standards, whatever, so that we could maybe aim, as Jen said, through either an overlay district design standards or some other method to give whatever the development is a better feel, something that you drive into and go, oh, I want to go here.
I mean,
Yeah.
maybe that's something we could do simply through adding, pre-application meeting with the planning board or the planner or something to that effect. Just so that it forces someone to come in and say, hey, this is what we're thinking, before they actually just show up with it.
Yep, those are great,
That makes sense.
great ideas. Yeah, suggestions.
I always think there should be regulations along with it, because it's all great if you say we would like a pre-meeting and we'd like you to see this, but you still need the regs to point to.
Correct. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it's
But
easier.
I
if you
do think
haven't
that's,
dropped
yeah.
a lot of money on plans, because that's what happens. We were talking about houses before, saying by the time they buy the land, have the plans drawn up, go to all the boards, go back to all the boards for change orders and whatever, they can't build starter house, what we used to call starter houses, or downsizing houses. I think the same applies for this, that if you have the opportunity before you've, poured a whole lot of money into it, to take a look at what the regulations say your restrictions are, but talk about what their dream might be, or what the town's dream might be, vision might be, to have that look like. I think you do better off by putting input in the front at the other end.
Right.
That's just me.
We can add that to the map as a comment on procedures, if you want to. Permitting procedures.
We're going to go back and we'll add to this map as well. We'll go through the comments. I know we missed some things. I'm taking some notes here. So just because you don't see it on the map right now doesn't mean we didn't take note of it. So I'm writing some notes. I know Taylor and my colleague Sarah's adding some, they're writing some notes. We'll go back in and add to it. And we really encourage you, folks who were here tonight, to go back into this map. It's going to be on our website, to go back in and, click on the thing, click on a spot and write your comment or like somebody else's comment. And again, it can be anonymous. You don't have to give any information. Even if you do, nobody else can see it. So again, we're just trying to get as much feedback as possible. Again, the master plan, it's called North Attleboro Master Plan 2030. So we're really looking to the future. Just because something can't go there now doesn't mean it can't go there in the future.
Right. I mean, one other thing we might want to look at too, as far as, we're talking about what we'd like to see, but I think as far as the types of buildings, we might want to try to incorporate something into our bylaws about having them be LEED certified, so that we can
Right.
add that to our bylaws as well, so that they're more green and more clean.
Somewhere in some one of the bylaws, there is that, the more recent one, there is reference to that, but you're right, Bill, they certainly need a good look at and tidying up, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, doing what I do for a living, I see many town bylaws, and there are some pretty interesting things that I've seen, and there are some where I just kind of step back and say, holy moly, where'd that come from? But I think we can find some happy medium in there.
Jen, you mentioned earlier about talking about mixed use, about Kelly Boulevard 152. Did anybody respond to that? I'm curious about that.
Anybody in this meeting, or just anybody?
Yeah, in the meeting, because it was one of the goals in the last master plan was, some sort of development on Kelly Boulevard. But most of it is strip plazas. So is this someplace that mixed use, if somebody were to buy, an entire strip plaza, for example, and repurpose it and reuse it and do retail on the bottom floor and have apartments or whatever upstairs? Is that the kind of thing that people would like to see, or is that reasonable, unreasonable?
I love
That's
it.
that's what I was mentioning. That's what I envisioned when I mentioned it, that it would be something to kind of like you're creating your own neighborhood where you have stores and restaurants on the first floor and people living above. That way there, they didn't really have to travel to get those things if they wanted. I mean, obviously they can go wherever they want, but.
Yeah. Could you do that with, there's one near George Levin Drive, there's a little strip plaza, and another little one next to that, out in the front there. Would those be places we could do something like that?
Probably. I mean, I think right now, though, the way it's zoned, we'd have to come up with either an overlay or just rezone that whole section.
Right.
The other part is obviously, right now with some of the stuff that's being permitted, that's also in the Aquifer Protection District. So we may be limited to what we could say could go there.
Right. Because all those strip plazas and all the paving that went with them were there before the Aquifer Protection District was put in.
Right. I think like every square inch of those is building or pavement pretty much.
Yep. I think so.
Except for the driving range, obviously, but anything that's in front of it is just a sea of building and asphalt.
I know that we had, thanks, Sarah. We had, before we let you go, I know we're coming up on 8 o'clock. If everyone could stay with us for a few minutes, we have a housing preference survey. I wanted to turn it over to my colleague, Taylor Perez. It won't take up too much of your time. Taylor, please.
Can you guys see my screen right now?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So I did link this in the chat. Let me just link it again for folks, just so it's readily available. Bark.
Sorry, that's me.
No, that's fine. That's fine. You should hear my dog. It doesn't
No
sound
worries.
doesn't sound that appealing. It's a lot louder. So that's linked in the chat right now. If everyone, I'm pretty sure with Zoom you can pull up a link to and be in the meeting and stuff like that. So you could take the survey kind of as I'm going through this, but let me just walk you through it as a preliminary. This is kind of a lead into our housing production plan workshop. And what we had wanted to do was look at the housing stock in North Attleboro from a more, 35,000 foot view, right? And so, we're obviously going to focus heavily on affordable housing, but there is just kind of the question about general housing preferences and just what it'll look like in 10 years or however long. So we wanted to kind of gauge folks' temperature on, what preferences look like, what that could be. And so we designed this survey that, initially looks at the two big things, density and diversity, where density is just, the physical amount of housing that takes place in, how many units per square foot or acre, et cetera. And then diversity, so the housing mix. Do you have predominantly single family, like we see, when we're just looking at our housing map here in North Attleboro? Do you have, small multifamily, things of that nature? So we designed this, and then we have this little legend here to kind of guide you through. Essentially, this is a ranking exercise. So these are actually real existing neighborhoods in the southeastern region. And what we've done here is we've displayed from a top-down view what they look like with their little tiny buildings and open space and roadway networks for reference. And then also this pie chart here to kind of explain the breakdown, the diversity. And so initially they're ranked just in order from density. So you have these kind of low density, these two medium density options with different diversities, and then these kind of two highest, high and highest density. And so all we ask you to do is just take the survey, rank them in order. We've included some of these visual guides to help you make sense of what this looks like, so it's not just a map of orange colors. And then essentially we will use this when we go into our housing production plan workshop to inform the conversation and get a little bit more into the nitty gritty there based on what we see here. you folks have questions on this? Is that, it's just a one question thing. Wanted to keep it pretty simple.
Taylor, can you scroll down to kind of
Sure.
give them a show?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
these are real life examples. We're not going to say where they are, but they're examples of towns in the region. So what it is, the top one is a town that that's low density, medium diversity. So you can see it's mostly single family. You can tell it's large lot just by kind of looking at it. Whereas the second is medium density, low diversity. It's all single family homes. Kind of looks like a tract of housing or some type of neighborhood that was developed at some point in time. Probably all starter homes just by looking at it. But and you look at, Taylor can guide you through the rest. It's more diverse. We're looking at different types of housing, and I'm sure there's mixed uses in there and whatnot. So.
Right. No, I mean, you pretty much summed it up. I mean, it's just, you can take a look at these. You can click and drag them if you so desire. You can just rank them in number and they'll reorder. But the general idea is that we're going where 1 is most desirable and 5 is the least desirable. So as long as folks can do that and they can access the survey, that's great. You can take it now since we have a couple minutes and we're here to answer questions and things like that. But if not, this is also going to go up on the website and then on the Facebook and whatnot to kind of, go out for public input. So just wanted to run through that quick and, see what folks have to say.
I should note too, the crowdsourced map, the map we were looking at all night, or a good part of the night, we'll have a video up too on folks if they're unsure how to use it. We'll post some questions there too to help guide folks through it, because it kind of looks a little unwieldy when you first look at it, but it's not too bad once you kind of get used to it.
Taylor, if you wouldn't mind, could you just scroll down a little bit and show where they're going to select on each one, where the number is? Yeah,
you have this little drop down guy right here. And so, if I put 4 here and then I start to rank, they'll eventually reorder. You can see 1 now has gone up here, and the one I ranked 4 is dropped down. And so you just kind of run through and rank them. And like I said, they'll reorder accordingly and renumber accordingly as you work through the survey.
Great, thank you.
All righty, that's all I got. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to throw the floor back to Eric.
So I know it's past 8 o'clock. We try to want to respect everybody's time, go from 6:30 to 8, about an hour and a half. We're going to be doing this again on Wednesday night. And everybody's more than welcome to attend. If you want to tell your neighbors, if you want to come again, I'm sure the conversation will be different. There'll be some, different folks here, some of the same folks, and that's great as well. Just looking to get the word out of these workshops, of these events. Again, it's all based on public input. That's how we write the plan. I'll hand it to Jen or Marie. I want to thank you for your time. If they have any closing thoughts.
Jen, do you have anything?
I just want to thank everybody for their time. I know that it's difficult this time of year, and especially with COVID and everything. So we really appreciate your input. And we do hope that you take the survey and, feel free to comment on those items that Eric said. And please share the information with your friends, family, anybody in North Attleboro who lives, works, or just travels through. We do want their input. We want your feedback, because the more feedback we have, the better off the plan is. So thank you, everyone. And Marie?
I will close with saying, yes, I agree with everything Jen said. The only addition I would make is, as Jen said, it's difficult. I know that there were people who signed up to come tonight and they couldn't make it for whatever reason, and they might not be able to make it Thursday either. But if they want, if you could encourage your friends, relatives, whomever, your in-laws, whatever, to go on to the master plan website or go to one of the links that they can find on Facebook or wherever, and answer the questions, do the survey. The more people that provide information, the better the master plan will be, because we really want to get as much resident input as we possibly can. That really matters a lot. It's something that matters a lot to the planning board. And to me personally, it matters a lot. And we're going to always be looking for more ways to reach out to you, get more input from you. And we will be talking about those as we move along. But even if you just want to zip an email, the contact information is all there. If you want to zip us an email and tell us something that you're thinking about, sometimes people don't like bringing things up in public, but they really want to ask a question about a particular area of town, or like some people always ask about the Webster Building and other buildings. But even if there's someplace else that you have an idea about or would like to see, or you've been someplace, we've been referencing Legacy Place and the place in Rentham and Watertown. If you've been someplace where you think a town has done a really good thing with the way they've laid out a particular area, you think it looks nice, it's attractive, draws people. I think it was Kevin, you said that it was a destination, or either you or Dave, I'm not sure. But,
That's what you need something that people are willing to drive to, like Rentham or
right,
Dedham, because people line up to get into Rentham. It's crazy up there.
I know.
Yep.
But anything that you can think of that
Yep.
you, like I said, that you think another town has done well, I will point people towards, and I haven't gotten there myself yet, but in Cambridge, where Cambridge Side Galleria was, it has changed, and it now has event spaces, more restaurants, and the group that owns it, their intention when they redid it, I would say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, was to have people go there because they were going there to do something. Either they were going to a concert, and by the way, I'm going to go early and have dinner. And oh, by the way, I need a birthday present, so we're going to go a half an hour before that. So I'm going to spend a few hours there. So, and they're doing pretty well from what I. Anything you can think of that you think could make North Attleboro be what you want it to be in 10 years would be awesome.
Yeah,
And
and
thank
just
you.
thank you again. Just because we're talking about land use, housing, economic development, if you have any days about anything else, feel free to share those as well. We don't have to go in any type of order here. But again, Serped, Down, thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.